So Florian Wirtz might not be heading to Man City in the summer, but AC Milan's Tijjani Reijnders is a midfielder who has emerged as a leading target for Pep Guardiola's side. City are understood to have started club talks now with Milan for Reinders, and negotiations will continue this week. And an opening bid is expected to arrive soon as well. And City are keen not just to finalise this deal to fend off interest from other clubs, but they also want to try and get him into their squad ahead of the Club World Cup, which begins in the middle of next month. So what do you make of this potential transfer then, Stephen? It seems from the outside looking in that it's progressing well, I guess. And would you be pleased to have him in City squad for next season?
Yeah, I'd be buzzing. Look, my biggest issue with City over the past couple of years has been the slow degradation of like elite level technical quality in Manchester City's midfield. Everyone goes on about, oh, we just don't run enough. Look, there's an element of that is true because we get older. But look, I watched João Neves, 5'7", boss midfield in Europe this season for PSG, and that's not because he's massive. He's not. It's because he can run. But the most important attribute of João Neves is intelligence, is his bravery, his football IQ, and once again his technical ability. Look, it's like a young Bernardo Silva. Bernardo Silva, 5'7". At the peak Liverpool side in 2019, it's the best high quality game I've ever seen is when City beat Liverpool 2-1 at the Etihad Stadium, when we went on to get 98 points to their 97. Bernardo Silva played at the heart of midfield that day alongside Fernandinho, and he was absolutely electric. All 5'7" of him, winning challenges, aggressive, physical, up against massive midfielders for Liverpool. That's what Joao Neves can do. So it's not about having these big guys. It's about having people who can run, but also most importantly, who can keep the ball. Because City have to operate on that level. Like Bernardo Silva didn't have to be massive. He just had to have the heart, the work rate, and he had to have the technical ability. And look, I look around and at City's midfield, and we signed Nunes. We signed Calvin Phillips. They just weren't good enough technically. They didn't have the composure, the spatial awareness. We signed Kovacic as well, who's much better than those two in midfield. But I would argue even then, Kovacic has been a slight step down over the majesty or the brilliance, the elegance of David Silva and Ilkay Gundogan, or the brute force technical brilliance of a Kevin De Bruyne. It's been a slow degradation of City's ability to sort of keep the ball and control teams and unpick the lock delicately. Because as much as Kovacic is a great player, and as much as we've seen City still win leagues. I think we've been leaning on Bernardo Silva, who's got older, Kevin De Bruyne, who's got older, and I think the standards have dropped a little bit in midfield. And we've tried people like Nunes and Kovacic and Phillips as solutions. It just hasn't worked. And Gundogan is not as good as he was 2 years ago. Bernardo Silva is not as good as 2 years ago. So their levels have dipped a little bit. Reinders, coming full circle, is a young Gundogan, a magically gifted footballer. Maybe he hasn't quite got the hard working ability yet, but I'm sure Guardiola will put that into him because Gundogan wasn't that at first. Bernardo Silva became much more of a relentless runner when he joined City. But most importantly, he can do the 1,000 million passes. He's wonderful in possession. He can score goals as well. He scores loads of goals. He can do that thing where he gets the ball, pirouettes past two people, then plays a dink little through ball to challenge, put through someone on goal, and just a moment of magic out of nowhere with a beautifully weighted pass. That is the level of quality City need. City have to be taking the best midfielders from some of the best leagues because we did it in Rodri. Rodri was one of the best central midfielders in La Liga. He was cracking for Atletico before we signed him, and he's evolved into a Ballon d'Or winning level player. I'm not saying Reinders will win the Ballon d'Or, but I'm saying he is apparently the best midfielder in Serie A according to their rewards. So that is the level it has to be. It can't be projects. Sometimes you've got to go out and sign a high quality player. And this guy has it all. Technically wonderful, a great goal scorer, loves to shoot from long range. But we've not had enough of that, With Rodri not there and Foden out of form, De Bruyne not pulling the trigger as much, we've missed a different way to get at teams. Rangers wants to score goals. Rangers wants to score goals. Rodri wants to score goals. Those two back into the team do. If you get Gibbs White, he wants to shoot from long range too. It's just different ways to play with people who are very comfortable in tight spaces. I'd be buzzing for the sign. I think it'd be a massive step up in City's midfield.
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting City signing for City from their point of view. I think he's one of a number of Milan players that's been tipped to go because Milan have failed to qualify for Europe. They finished seventh in the league, but he had a superb season at Milan. He was like you said
Yeah,
before, he's named Serie A midfielder of the year, named in the team of the year. 10 goals and 5 assists in 37 league games. He scored goals in the Champions League as well. I think he got one or two against Real Madrid. He's been a standout performer for them. And you mentioned there Ilkay Gundogan. Do you think he's sort of the the ideal replacement for him. Gundogan's, of course, 34. Bit of speculation about whether he'll move on or not this summer or the summer beyond. So do you think he's sort of the ideal successor to him in the future?
Yeah, I do. I think he's very Gundogan coded. I think you get that box crashing ability, like Gundogan. At the weekend, look, he's there. Like especially towards the end of the season, he has this uncanny ability to step up, but he's there close to the strikers because he has that instinct to goal, and Reinders seems to have that, and he also has that same elegance and that same upward stride, and just glides past people and a bit of magic to him. I think look at that as a potential Gundogan replacement, Reinders. You look at, if you think of what Bernardo Silva is now as opposed to what he was 5 years ago, Bernardo was much more skillful 5 years ago, like in terms of his footwork was just ridiculous. But Bernardo Silva is still a cracking player, but he's definitely more of a box to box player these days. I would argue Gibbs White is a Bernardo Silva replacement, a guy who can play as an eight, who's who's 2 footed, relentlessly hard working. You can see those two as replacements for Gundogan and Bernardo Silva. It just makes sense profile wise. So yeah, he's definitely the Gundogan replacement for me because he just can do what Gundogan can. Obviously, Gundogan's more experienced and so on, but I think he could easily be shaped into a Gundogan-esque player.